What's going on, everybody? Cheers. Happy Wednesday, and welcome to the With Her Two Hands podcast, where each week we celebrate the women who build, fix, and make the things that make the world go round with her own two hands. I am your host, Bogey, and I am thrilled to be joined tonight by a really inspiring woman. I only recently discovered her on social media, and then as I started to learn more about her, I was just more and more impressed with her tenacity and her grit and her energy and just her willingness to decide to make a change later in life and turn her life upside down and pursue a whole new direction. I think you guys are going to really enjoy meeting her. She is a welder and a fabricator who's been in the trades and in her industry for a long time, since high school, as long as I've been in it. So I think we're going to have some fun chatting. But before we dive into that and I introduce you to her, I want to thank you guys for being a part of this series and being a part of changing the way people look at women in the trades, right? The more we hear these women's stories, the more we meet them, the more we normalize the idea of seeing women out doing this kind of work. And that is ultimately what we want to do, right? The less surprised people are when they encounter a woman out in the field, the easier our lives are, the better the world is. So I thank you guys for being a part of normalizing women in the trades. If you like this series, make sure you hit like, hit subscribe, leave comments down below. Tell the algorithm that they should let more people know about this, because these women are pretty freaking amazing and they deserve to have a light shown on them and their stories heard, and to see things change in the trades for the better for everybody. So thank you guys. And of course, a big thank you to our sponsor. If you're not familiar with them, Drive Time has helped make this series possible for the last several years. And they have also partnered with my shop, Girl Gang Garage, on an upcoming charity all-female build. This is a company that really puts their money where their mouth is. They believe in giving back. They believe in women in the trades. They believe in supporting diversity within the workplace. So if you're looking for a new car, or if you're looking for a new place to call home for your career as a technician or a detailer or a collision tech, definitely go check them out. I'll have a link down in the description below. They're really good folks, great corporate culture, and I'm thrilled to have them as my partner on this podcast and on our next all-female build. So stay tuned for details on that. And with that, I am going to quit rambling, and I'm going to bring on tonight's guest because she is a boss, and you deserve to meet her. So without further ado, here is Miss Kristen Gonzalez. Hello, darling. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am fantastic. I am so thrilled that you were willing to say yes on relatively short notice. I don't know how I discovered you exactly. I think you commented on somebody else's post, and I was like, oh, who's that? And I clicked on your little profile and I checked you out and reached out, and you were just like, yeah, sure, I'm game. Let's go. Like, life adventures. Let's do it. And I have to say, when you sent me your email with all of the information about your career, I was like, dang, this
Yeah.
girl is boss. Like, you are boss, and I'm so thrilled to hear your story and introduce you to everybody. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
So tell everybody in a nutshell where you're at, what you do.
Okay.
Brief nutshell.
Okay. So I'm currently residing in Shirts, Texas, which is east of San Antonio, right outside the city. My husband is active duty, and he's getting ready to hit his 20-year mark. So we wanted to settle down in a place where the kids could have the benefits of his career, where I could also still have a chance for my career. I'm sorry, I have a dog. She wants to
For
be
those
in
that are listening in the podcast version, you're missing this adorable dog giving mama kisses while she is
But
talking.
so my husband and I both decided that he would come back to a stated record. We would have the benefits that Texas offers the military members and retired and active duty. And I really like how Texas is kind of becoming a mecca for the car industry. And there's always welding opportunities in Texas, whether it's oil fields or something. And we decided to settle here and put some roots down. And we're excited to also have my brother-in-law and his family, who was also military. They're moving right down the street from us, so we're really excited to finally have some roots down and family together. So, yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, so that's
So
that.
And this is new for you, right? Having
Yes.
roots, having a
Yeah.
supportive partner, having a
Yes.
supportive extended family, being in one place. This is all a very new thing for you. So take us back in time a little bit.
Okay. I guess I can go back to where I decided welding was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I was in high school in a very small town in Pennsylvania, Wyalusing area school district, and at the time I was going to be either an art major or architecture. So I was really into drafting by hand and then AutoCAD and all that stuff. And in the art, and I love the art, and I always like mixed media, and I would just pencil drawing wasn't for me. That kind of stuff wasn't for me. And I'm like, I need something else. I need to get dirty. I need to do something. Um, so tying that together, I also rode BMX with all the guys, or tried to ride BMX, I guess. And I was in drafting class with the same guys, and they would leave after class and go to metal shop, and I'm like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, and then like that sounds fun. They get dirty, they make stuff, like cool. And I'm like, I got to get in this class. And my drafting teacher was also the metal shop teacher, so I'm like, hey, can I get into this class? They're like, no. And I'm like, well, why? They're like, well, it's not for women. I'm like, it's literally the same people in my drafting class, like they pick up and they go to the metal shop class. And I'm like, it just pick me up, let me go in there. So it didn't work out. He said, absolutely not, I don't have time for that. And I was kind of butthurt. And I think that was like the push, because I've always, like, somebody tells me no, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it. So you're I don't know if it's a reverse psychology, but like when somebody tells me no and I'm like, oh, game on. Okay. So I for like a week, I'm like, I want to do this. And he's like, no. And the counselor was like, absolutely not happening. We're not, that's not going to be a thing. So I went to his house. I walked to this guy's house and I'm like, hey, he's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I want in that class. And he's like, no. And his wife was in the background, and she was an art teacher for another school district. And she was kind of like, she was listening. And I'm like, let me in, because if I fail, you could say you were right. And if I do well, you can be proud of me. You know what I mean? You could do something. So he was reluctant, but he let me join. And the very first day, I set myself on fire because because back in the day, like it was like 99, 2000, flannel shirts, grungy pants. Oh yeah, let's do some stick welding with that. So like I lit myself on fire. I'm like, well, it can't get any worse. You absolutely not get any worse. So I ended up doing that, and by the time I graduated, or on my way to graduation, I ended up getting a small grant to help pay for some schooling. Um, I did get accepted into Pennsylvania College of Technology, where I continued my career, but I didn't even have the support of my parents for that. It took a while for that to even happen. So it was always something in the line, like you can't do this, you can't do this, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it. Keep telling me I can't do it because I'm gonna do it. So eventually, I got accepted, and my parents started to come around when I did an open house project. I did some sculptures. They were really cool. Once I started realizing how much welding was involved in anything, I'm like, I have to do this. Like, this is so fun. So that's kind of how I got started. And then
I love it.
so it's funny because like I mean, how it can't get any worse, but sometimes it did.
How did the teacher respond on that first day when you set yourself? I mean, this is a guy that did not want you in the class to begin with.
Yeah.
I love that you had the tenacity to show up at his house and
Yeah.
like
It was.
no.
I grew up in a very small town, and I don't take no for an answer. So, I mean, I didn't have there was nothing else to do. So I rode my bike down there or walked, and I'm like, let me in this class. Like,
I love that.
It's something I always have to do. I've noticed that I've always had to do throughout my career. I've not always take the traditional route on how to get things. Like there's always a backdoor way to get into things, and I've managed to weasel my way into more opportunities that way, showing up than the maybe non-traditional or traditional ways.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
I feel like you're right. Like that is so necessary in the trades for women in particular. But it's interesting, and maybe this is what makes us really good at what we do. Often, not always, because
Yeah. Oh
there's
no.
there's good men and good women. There's bad men and bad women. But I feel like, part of like being a tech and a metal worker and a welder, like there's a lot of problem solving that goes on in it. And so there's a lot of like, well, I know what the answer is, and I just need to figure out how to get there. And if I can't get there here, I'll try
Yep.
this way, and then I'll try
Yep.
this way, and then I'll try this way. And as women in the trades, we had to learn that skill
Yeah.
just to be here. Like,
Yeah.
oh, if asking politely doesn't get me there, what if I go this way? What if I
Yeah.
go that way? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's always one way, there's more than one way to get to an endpoint. And that is something that I've heard throughout my career through multiple people I admire, new people, just don't give up. If it's something that you really, really want, you're gonna have to face some obstacles. And if you want it bad enough, you will find a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there a moment where you like knew like that it wasn't just about I'm doing this because they told me I can't,
Yeah.
right? Because that was kind of my thing. Like I had an interest.
Yeah.
They told me I can't. They told me I shouldn't, and it made me want it more. It was definitely like we have that. We're cut from the same cloth on that, Kristen.
Yeah.
But there was a point for me where I remember being like, "Oh, I'm no longer doing this to prove a point. I actually do love this."
Yeah.
Do you remember when that was, where you decided like this is actually this is it. This is what I love.
The day after I set myself on fire.
The day.
Because and I'm like, there were all the guys I was friends with. There were people that wanted to see me fail. And you know what? I'm like, I love this. It cannot possibly get any worse. And then once you start thinking about, wow, there's so many things you could do this. You can do the car thing, which ultimately is why I got into it. And then I'm like, well, if you think about how much is welded or this and that, it's just crazy. And then when I did the open house for the college, like as soon as I walked into the shop, and it's that smell, like this smell, and I know you know it. And if we could put it in a candle, I would buy it all year round. And I'm just like, I love this. Like I was passionate about it. I had to be passionate about it, and I still love it. And there were times like where I had to step away from my career for support of others, or being a mom and making sure things were right. But I always missed it. I need to go back to that. And I think every time I've had some kind of bad luck, it's always been the welding that is like okay, I need this. It's like a bloodline, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Does that make sense?
It's your ground.
Yeah. It's comfortable. Yeah.
And you've had quite a bit of adversity from not supportive parents, and then that led and not supportive teacher, right? Like this guy didn't want you in the class. I'm curious about both of them. The teacher, did he come around?
Yeah.
Eventually?
Oh yeah. And then he was he was a good guy in my drafting class, and I just maybe it was like maybe he needed to see more from me, more effort, more passion from it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because sometimes, and I still get every once in a while, like I actually cried like a week ago because, that's normally not me, but he's like, you're going to have to be a badass bitch. And I'm sorry if you want to stay in this career. And I think he knew I had what it would take, but I think I needed to prove it to him.
You think it was a little bit of a test?
Yeah, I think so, because eventually he came around, and it was ultimately his decision for what I was one of two winners for the grant for school, and it was his decision. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So he did come around. Beautiful. How about your parents?
I have a very tough relationship, pretty much non-existent, with my mother for a lot of reasons, because one of them wasn't always the support system. It wasn't always a healthy relationship. My dad, I lost my dad like 2 years ago.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'll get to that. We'll come back to that.
Okay.
But he eventually told me that he was proud of me, and that's ultimately, like, I still use that today. So I didn't think that was ever going to come. And I don't think some of the other family members ever got that. But it was like, I got that. And that little bit, like, really helped in so many ways. So
I am welling up a little bit. Like that
I'm
is,
trying not to cry.
I am so glad that you got that
Yeah.
before he passed and were able to get to that place and that he was able to voice it. I know there's a lot of machismo in the world and this kind of idea. I've been talking with friends a bunch about this recently, this idea of like the proud father who will tell everybody else that he's proud of his daughter, but never tell her. And it's this weird thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, why does it pain you so to tell your children that you're proud of them?
Oh my
So I'm so glad you got that before.
Yeah. And I think ultimately that is part of the reason why I think it's important that my husband and I like show our parents or show our children that how much we love them. We have a really good communication and a very good open line of that. And hey, we're parents, we're still learning, but it's important that we recognize where we mess up and how we can be a better parent, because not everybody has a lovey-dovey family. And when you're trying to do something where, especially a woman in a non-traditional field, like for us, especially being as long as we've been in this, it's like, you're going to be a mechanic, you're going to be a welder. Like, no, you're going to go to school to be this. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to waste my money on an education that I'm not going to use. Like, I know I'm going to do this. So I just want my kids to be comfortable enough where they can come to us. And if that's what they want to do, we're going to do everything we can to do that. Like, I just think that's a mark that I think the newer parents are starting to pick up on.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, and it's the silver lining too, right? Like it's unfortunate that you had to have the experience of unsupportive parents and family members and partners and all of the rest. But if the result is that your kids get this amazingly supportive parent because you know what the opposite feels like, then that's a beautiful silver lining.
Yeah. Oh. And I actually do some student classes and introductions and talk about myself. And I love seeing the kids like light up. Like, I had no idea this was a career. Like, wow, this is this. And like, there's some parents that might not understand the trades, and and just watching little kids just like light up and like, this is a welding helmet and this is that. And just, I love that. I think eventually, if I could find a position where I could teach young kids, I would probably jump into it for sure.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's amazing how many kids just aren't exposed to it. And like, more people need to hear like your story. Like, literally the second day you fell in love and knew this was going to be your career for life. Like, if you had never stumbled upon this class, or if it wasn't offered in your school, like, you would never have found your passion and your calling and this thing that has been such an amazing gift for you.
Yeah, I often think back, but I don't get hung up on it, that if I wouldn't have found that, and I was in a very small town, there wasn't a lot to do. We did a lot of partying and stuff like that. And I don't think if I didn't have that career or that like path to fall on, I don't think I would be in a good spot, honestly. And I'm so glad that this trade has led me down the path that it is. And I've had to do several detours. I'm sure you have as well. Or I know women in a non-traditional field, and it's not just the trades, but non-traditional. Like, it's tough, and it's
it is.
Everybody.
So tell us what happened next. So you're in high school, you go to this welding program, this class, and you fall in love with it. You mentioned something about a grant for a program after high school. Tell us about that and what that meant.
I did a small grant for, I think it was only like $500. It wasn't much, but to me, that was like, holy smokes, this just solidified that I'm going in the right direction. So I went to Pennsylvania College of Technology, which is, it's linked to Penn State, but they did a lot of their technical schools out of there. And initially I signed up for the 2-year program, which is Associates in Welding Technology. I fell in love. I loved it even more. We did oxyacetylene first, and then I think I did stick, and then MIG, flux core, subarc, TIG. Like, I think we even did we were starting to do orbital, I believe, at the time when that was happening. That was new. That was new for, at least for me. I didn't even know half those processes even existed. And
if I'm being honest, I'm not sure I know what you mean by orbital. So
orbital is a different type of, it's another type of welding. I'll have to show you a link, because I have never been certified in it, and I only did a little bit of it. But I know it's used a lot. I think some pipe do it, and I think aerospace, but don't quote me on that one.
Okay.
I've never had the opportunity. It was never part of
Gotcha.
that I needed.
Point being, there's a lot more types of welding than most people think of, right?
And there's new. I just learned silicone brazing with TIG like 2 weeks ago, and I've been doing welding for a long time, and I never use it, and I was terrible.
It's different applications, right?
Yeah.
Different applications.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you go to this program. How long of a program was it?
It was initially a 2-year program. I joined we had an AWS kind of club,
which is American Welding Society, for anybody who doesn't know, who's listening.
Yeah, we had a American Welding Society club, and we also did our school also had a really great motorsports club as well. So I joined that towards the end, but then I decided, this welding is awesome. What else can I do? So I actually tacked on for the Industrial Welding Fabrication Engineering program.
Oh,
and I loved it. I learned statics and strength of materials, metallurgy, NDT, which is non-destructive testing, for those who don't know, and that's like your mag particle, liquid dye penetrant, X-rays, ultrasonic. And I'm like, well, the NDT is pretty neat because that's the inspection thing. And I really just kept adding more classes for this engineering. And I was like, oh, this is cool. This is cool. And then I realized that I'm going to sit behind the desk with that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I wasn't 100% sure about it. And I was just like, that would be cool down the road, but I really want to get some welding experience under me. Financially, I had a little bit of help financially with school, but it was like the bills were mounting and it was getting expensive. And I'm like, I have my associates now. I can go get a job, and I did not complete my engineering degree, and I have no regrets. I have no regrets on that. That is an amazing field. There's a lot of women engineers, and I'm all for them. I just knew it wasn't for me.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah. So I finished. I got a job while I was still in college, but I dropped out of college basically. So. And
I mean, you're cutting yourself short. You added on to your program, and then you dropped out of the add-on.
Yes.
So I think it's still legit.
Yeah, I just trying to learn. I have a degree in welding. It's just not the 4-year one, and I'm okay with that.
That's okay.
I worked this a terrible production job, and it was. I was making minimum wage, and I'm like, this is not what I signed up for. This is terrible. And then I found a position with Air Products and Chemicals, which is a pretty big gas supplier. I think it's a Fortune 500 company. And they were looking for inspectors. And I got into this interview, and the guy's like, so you want to be an inspector? And I walk past like all these guys welding. I'm like, I actually don't want to be an inspector anymore. Can I just go like on the floor? Do you have a position for on the floor? He's like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I'm like, okay, cool.
But really, do you have a position on the floor?
And he was like shocked. He's like, you understand that like you would have to go to like, you'd be a production. You would be a welder. You wouldn't be a inspector. And I'm like, with all due respect, how am I going to be a good inspector if I have no real welding experience under me? And he was like, he said, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I'm just like, well, okay, whatever. And so
personal challenge accepted.
Yeah. So, and I'm like, okay, this is, you don't know how I work, but check. So I ended up getting hired on as a welder with this company, and it was unionized, and it was my first real job. I joke about it because I was like 20 years old, making more money than I should have been making, with no like real like grasp of like bills and all this stuff. and I was immature, and I was like, it was everybody's so mean to me, and it's not my fault. And then looking back at it, like, okay, I was kind of a pain in the ass. Like I was very like I did a lot of this. A lot of my own problems were self-created. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay. Okay.
Tell me more though. It makes sense because I that resonates for me. Because I know I was my biggest obstacle was myself when
Yeah.
I was younger.
Yeah.
But tell me more about that for folks who that might not resonate with.
Okay. So I made a lot of dumb mistakes. I was on the road and, like 19, 20, 21, I was drinking. So I was burning the candle at both ends. I was working 16-hour days, but also drinking. I was either in the shop or on the road. And I saw the path and I'm like, this is not a good path. This is not healthy. But it was like a normal for being on the road. That was kind of like the life. And it's not always fun. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of people that are away from their families, that are just working, trying to make ends meet. And then there's younger people like us that are just irresponsible and young and doing dumb things. And I would think that like if somebody was upset with me, or if I failed a visual or a dye penetrant, like it wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. It was always somebody else. So it was a reality check. And I was in the office crying like my way out the door. It was funny because I was talking to somebody about this today. Like this is the job that I shouldn't have got, but I really learned a lot from it. And I eventually, I was a little baby and I had work dads and they were like, stop this shit. Get back in the booth. You're going to do fine. And I, I, I still talk to some of those guys and they mean the world to me. So there were a few that wanted to see me fail, as with a lot of positions I've been in, but there were some really good work dads that kept me on the path that did. And I stayed there until I think my second child was born. So that was this is kind of where like I have a rock bottom. I always call it my rock bottom. So my first real relationship, I was in that job and I was around a lot of guys, and it was always I was with somebody that was I can't think of the word, that he was wasn't very confident, or he was insecure. Okay. So, but I was doing really well. I got my act cleaned up together and I was just like going on the right path, and I expected him to be on that same path with me. And sometimes, people are on a weird thing. So I ended up becoming pregnant with my partner at the time, and the union was fabulous. They really worked with me, and they're like, hey, this is not a normal situation for us. I can't even tell you the last time we had a pregnant woman. So we're going to do some things different. And I'm like, okay. And that was really good. And then I actually went into preterm labor at work, and I lost, my son was born and he lived for a few days, and I lost him. And that really, I was on a really good path, and then I nosedive. And then I was just kind of like, okay, if I don't get back into welding, I'm going to go crazy. But I was out of work for like 6 weeks, and I was just going insane. And as soon as like the 5 weeks and like 6 days, I'm like, get me back in. And I was in, and I got all my certifications back, and I was doing really good. And then things were going really good for a while. And it was my turn to go to, I think it was Qatar I think it was Qatar. And I had to go through a physical and all that stuff again. And I found out I was pregnant again. So, which it was good because we were, I ended up having my daughter, my oldest daughter, and she's amazing. She's 16 right now. And I took a little bit of a step back with her, and I decided not to travel. So I stayed at the shop, and I was there for a while, and I was really dealing with an unsupportive partner. He was working days, and then I was working nights. So one of us would have the kid, but like I was exhausted because I was still a mom, but I still had to work, and I was still working long hours. And then I got pregnant again. And then that's when I realized, like, I need to I need to step back for a little bit. I need to make sure that my kids are taken care of. So I decided to come off of that job. I left that job and I was with that person at the time. And it was just a downward spiral because I wasn't providing the way it was, and I wasn't holding up my end of the bargain, which put more stress on him. And it just really, it was a nosedive. Uh, so I'm okay to talk about this, but one day my daughter, when she was like 4, she's like, "Mommy, you don't have to pretend to be happy anymore." So where I thought I was hiding everything, I wasn't. So that day I'm like, okay, I'm done. So with the help of my parents, thankfully, I was out of that situation. I was left with no money. I had no money, no certificates, no self-worth, but I had my kids and they were watching every move. And I didn't think they were, but they were. And it was time like, okay, I need to pull myself together. I need to start from scratch. I need to, like, I was at rock bottom. I couldn't go any lower. I buried a kid. I had 2 kids that were depending on me, and I was just like, okay, we got to do something, but we got to do something better. So eventually I left Pennsylvania and I moved to Florida to be closer to my parents because they were retired down there. And I was working for a little bit and I found a job at a grocery store. And I'm like, okay, I have 2 kids. They're depending on me. I need to make money. I have no car. I had to buy a car. I had to like work back up. And then the whole time I'm like, I miss welding. I miss it. Like I could still do it. I could do it by myself. I can do it. Like I could do it. So I was able to get into a shipyard program. And I did this non-traditionally because I was not getting anywhere with the entire process, like the email and nothing. So I drove to the place and I'm like, I want this job. I used to do this. I don't do it anymore. All my certificates, they're all expired, but I'm trainable, I'm teachable, and I can do this. I just need somebody to give me a chance. So another way, I weaseled my way through the back door, through everything, and I got into this class, and the guy's like, "How are you even in here?" And I'm like, "I talked to da-da-da," and he put me in. So he called. He's like, "Who is this girl? Why is she in my class? She's not on the roster." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I put her on. Just give her a chance." And he was talking about something, and he said it was autogenous welding, and I'm like, "Oh no, it's autogenous welding." And I corrected him, and that was the dumbest thing I ever did because I knew, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you're so stupid. Why did just keep your mouth shut?" And he like,
I mean, but you weren't wrong.
I know, but I foot in mouth, you know. And so I was still working at the grocery store, but I was going to this night certifications. So I was working 12 hours, driving 2 to go to this class. And then I was sleeping in my car to make it like do this whole loop. I was very fortunate. I did have a tough relationship with my parents, but they did support me for that. And I will always be grateful for that. So I was sleeping in my car, getting my certification, working, being a mom, still dealing with like court and custody and kind of all this stuff. And I got in. I passed. I was like one of the last ones to pass. And he's like, "This is fail. You passed it. You failed the visual." And I'm like, "No, I fucking didn't. I know. I'm sorry." I'm like, "I know I did it." And eventually the x-rays don't lie.
Right.
So I got back into pipe welding and I did it in a shipyard. And I loved that job. It was the hardest up until now. It was the hardest job I did because every day it was different. It was either in position or restricted 6GR, extra heavy wall, mirror welds. I even used my makeup mirror before, like in some spots. So I loved it. And I was like, I'm back, I'm back. And then I was doing really, really good in that.
Wait, I gotta pause you. I gotta pause you for a second because this is holy crap, woman.
Well,
like any one of the things that you went through would take a lot of people down.
Yeah, and I went down so many bad slopes, but
and we do, like, it happens, right? And I think the goal is not to never be taken down. The goal is to never stay down.
yeah.
Right. And so many of the things that you experienced and dealt with, each individually would be enough to stop a lot of people. And you experience so many of them, so much heartache,
Mhm.
so much challenge, so much pushback, so much pain. Like I am so in awe that yes, you hit your rock bottom, but that you turned it around
Yeah.
and kept going and figured out a way to make it happen. So I just want to acknowledge you, and that's you are a bad bitch as your
Well,
metal teacher.
um, it's it's taken a lot to get there, but I was doing really well, and then decided that I decided that I was fixed enough where I could give love another chance. Like I
Okay.
wasn't perfect, and trust me, if my husband
None
here
of
would be
us
like,
are.
"Oh, I know, I know," but I was like, I'm gonna try dating, and dating even like 15 years ago was I don't even anyway. But
It's no good now either. Don't worry.
oh, if my husband and I, if it was it, I would be no, I'm good. I'm good. I got my dog, I got my kids, I'm good. But I have the best partner, and I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him. But so when I met him, I told him, I'm like, listen, I work with thousands of guys. There was only a few pipe women in pipe. There were some structural welders and stuff like that, and we had, there was women, but it's guys. And I'm like,
Minority.
I work with guys. I get contacts from guys. I hang out with guys. I've always had this thing where like eventually like you just don't date the people that you're working with. It's just not a good idea. And I just don't do it. I mean, I'm happy if you do, if you find your best friend that way, cool, but it's not worth it. So I told him, I'm like, listen, I work with a lot of guys. I'm around a lot of guys. You got to be secure with yourself. I can't do another insecure person. And he's like, yeah, okay. And then he's like, well, I'm in the military. And I'm like, oh God, this is, I heard stories, but I really I knew something, like I knew this was going to be the guy I was going to spend the rest of my life with. He didn't know it, but I did. So surprisingly, after my son was born and I left, I actually had my tubes tied. And so surprise, surprise, I was in my second trimester when I found out we were expecting. And we weren't married, but we were together for, I think, maybe 3 years at the time. And it was kind of like, I didn't believe it at first. I ended up having the nurse gave me tests to take. And I'm like, I'm not pregnant. It's just hot. I was pregnant. So I was in my second trimester, and then I got pregnant, and then he got orders to move. And I'm like, well, we're stuck. So I guess I'm following you. And we moved. I left that, and we moved to the Seattle area. And we just move every once in a while. And I always have to restart. And I know you did a conversation or a podcast with, I think her name was Jill, how it's exhausting that every time you start a new job, you have to prove yourself over and over again. And the difference between the pipe welding, because I had certifications, and the x-rays, okay, you did this, you can weld. But when you go into a production and there's no certification, and it's always like, oh, who's this girl? Oh, I don't know you. You got to do this. How can you do this? And it's just, and I really think the word you guys used was exhausting. And I'm like, exactly. That is it. Just have to start over again and again. And unfortunately, that was part of the package deal with the military, because I knew what I was getting into. I knew that we were going to have to move. And yeah, so there's that. Kind of off track. But yeah. So we lived in Seattle area for a little. Sorry.
Did it get easier for you over time? The learning, the exhausting, the reestablishing yourself?
I knew it was coming. I didn't know that it was going to be so hard going back to a production job. Does that make sense? Because I didn't have this certification. It was come in and do this, and it was just kind of like, oh. But at the point, I just don't care anymore. I'm good. I'm just gonna go in, and I'm gonna do what I'm supposed to do, and then I'm gonna carry my weight, and I'm just gonna do it. And sometimes there's people that are just gonna fight you. There's always somebody that just wants to see you fail.
Right.
And I'm that's fuel for my fire. So I just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
That's
And you
just,
brought that up in one of your first jobs, that like there were people who wanted to see you fail, but you also had some work dads.
yeah,
And I, you know, it's, I always like, I like to check the time at like what point in the interview does it come up that like having allies in the workplace or
yeah,
having a mentor made a world of difference, that
yeah,
you were like, I was ready to be out the door, but my work dads were what helped make it possible. And I think that's the thing that like saves us
yeah,
so often, that yes, it is so exhausting to start over again and again and again and to prove yourself each time. It gets a little easier because we know
yeah,
it's coming and we know we can get through it and we know we can find our allies, right? But it's still exhausting nonetheless. But if
yeah,
it weren't for those allies, and I just want the folks at home to hear that so loud and clear, like we talk about it in every
yeah,
episode, we need you, men who are watching this and listening to this, like we need you to be our allies, because that is what makes
yeah.
the
One,
difference.
100%. So I think moving forward, my husband got orders again. It was during COVID, and we were moving overseas. He got orders to Germany, and I was like, "How is this going to work? How?" I had to secure the older two with their biological dad. Like, hey, we have this opportunity to move to Germany. We're going to travel. We're going to do this. He was very he was reluctant, but he could see the opportunity that the kids had. So
Yeah.
we after we got through that hurdle and then we moved, I realized that I wasn't allowed to work because I was on a SOFA status. So so I was on like I was like, what am I going to do for the next 3 years while you're at work? We can't always travel. Plus, it was during COVID, and overseas with COVID, it was very serious. It was very,
Yeah.
very serious. So I was going nuts, and my my brother passed away, and before this, my sister already passed away. So my oldest brother and my oldest sister passed away, and then I was going down that slope again. I'm like, half of my siblings have passed away, and then I eventually lost my father while I was overseas as well. And I just got in this big downward spiral, depression, and it was cloudy in Germany, and I was just kind of terrible. My husband bought me a welder. He's like, I don't know if you're going to be able to make money for it. I don't know if we're going to be able to find a job for you over here, but I know this is what you need. And he got that for me, and he ordered it from America, and I had to go through like finding all the fittings for all the regulators, and it was crazy. But I really think that like he knew that's what I needed, and I got to keep going. And then I got to fall in love with cars again because in Germany there was the Porsche, and there was all kinds of things, and then we were pretty close to France, and then Italy, and it was just like, oh, I'm falling in love with cars again. And my dad used to race Formula Super V's, and I'm gonna find his car, I'm gonna do this. And he surprised me with a trip to Le Mans, the Grand Prix, and it was just kind of like everything I needed. And we got a project car to work on while I was over there. And as we were leaving to come back to the United States, this class popped up on there's a guy on Instagram called his handle is Preserving the Craft, and his name is Jory Vanderpool, and he's a coach builder out of the Netherlands, and he offered like beginner metal shaping classes. And I already had my tools shipped back to the States. Like we were getting ready to leave, and I told my husband, I'm like, I need to do this. And he's like, yeah, you do. And he's like, we'll make it happen. And everything was gone. I'm like, I had to go buy some more tools. And I just drove to the Netherlands, and I did this class, and I'm like, this is it. This is what I needed. I'm like, I can weld, but I want this void. This is more. This is something else I need to do, because I felt like I was very complacent in my trade. I could weld, and I was really good at welding, like TIG welding, stainless, copper, nickel, and aluminum. But there's so much more to it. And taking that class, I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to continue to go. And I was worried because I'm not a mechanic, and I want to build cars, and I'm not a mechanic. And he told me, he's like, I don't know anything about these. I don't know nothing. He's like, I build a buck. This is how you build a buck. And we do the car around it. And then I send it off, and they do all that other stuff.
Yeah. They do the mechanic-y things. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'm in love. And it's the hardest it's the hardest thing I've done so far. And I needed that. I definitely needed it because I was so like bored. And I know that there's so much with welding and metal shaping and the trade that there's no reason to be bored. I just didn't have the opportunity or the people or the places or in Germany I wasn't allowed to work. So I
Well,
was,
yeah.
yeah. So there was last minute and I did that and I called my husband. I'm like, I love you. Thank you for this, but I'm going to need to do more of it. He's like, okay, fine. And then we were moving to Texas and we were here for probably a month. And then it was the day or two before another chop class popped up and it was last minute. And I told you this earlier and I'm like, everything happens last minute and I have to do it. So I took this chop class and I did, it was a class with Christian Sosa yeah, so I did it with him and it was Carl Fisher and the garage that it was at was a bare bones garage with Christopher Galan. And I did it and I was kind of like really quiet. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Like shy. I don't know anybody there. And they're like, well, tell us about yourself. Oh, I've just been a welder for 25 years. And they're all kind of like, wasn't expecting that. I was like, okay. So I jumped into that and I wasn't even hitting the hammer correctly. Like I was choked up on it too far. He's like, no, we'll go back. And then
Yeah.
I learned a lot of things and I'm like, I love this. I want to do more of it. And then like literally a month ago, it was the day of the class started. I found another chop class and that was with Clark Gilly and Murpho. And I don't know if you know her, Custom Colette. So you should probably check her out because
I
she's
will.
also another badass. And I fell in love with that, and I felt really probably too comfortable in that class because the sense of humor, and I think part of the trades, we have like this weird. It's probably, do you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah. For anybody who's not in the trades is a special place.
Yeah.
Where the sense of humor is very unique and off color and mostly not appropriate. And we act like 5-year-olds most of the time. So,
Yes,
yep.
you nailed that one. Yes. So I felt really
Sometimes
yeah, I
it's
felt
in good
really,
fun and sometimes it crosses the line.
and I think I might have crossed the line. I think maybe I was a little too comfortable, but that was that was another good thing. And oh, okay. So I've already known that this is the route I want to go to. Like I uprooted everything comfortable and I took a huge pay cut and when I moved to Texas, I found a job and I worked with Ultimate Top Drives now where I build clean sheet design articulating hunting vehicles. That okay, it sounds crazy and
Okay.
I will link something on my Instagram to show what I do. And it's fun, but I still feel like I'm not learning enough. It's it's a very great job. I have the opportunity that if something happens with my kids, they're like, go take care of your kids. It's the first job I've had where family is important. And I am forever in debt to them. And I really think that this company is going to go places. And they took a chance with me, and I really love it. Um, but I also reached out to, or no, somebody reached out to me. Cruiser Garage is a car hot rod shop in New Braunfels, Texas, which is right up the road from me. This guy messaged me on Instagram. He's like, hey, I see your profile where I openly state that I want to get into the hot rods. I'm very new to it. And, this is somebody give me a chance. I don't care who it is. Give me a chance, whatever. And he's like, I don't really have a spot for you, but I want to meet you. And I'm like, okay, sure. So I went in and I talked with him for a while and I was very vulnerable. And I'm like, listen, I don't know how to do any of this, but I've been taking classes and I'm forking over money for this. I know I want to do it. I'm not quite there yet. I'm not, he's like, I felt so comfortable with him. And it was a really good, I felt at peace because I'm like, let's just do it. What do I have to lose? What do I have to lose? So I did that. And he's like, I don't have a spot for you, but I have a feeling that I'm going to reach out to you soon. And he reached out to me, I guess like a month and a half ago at like the best point where I was, because I was like, I need to do something. We were really slow at work, and I had some leeway. And at the time we were only working 4 days a week, so I had my Monday off. He's like, I'm gonna give you a shot, and I'm like, well, I don't know if I'm ready for it. I'm probably gonna fail. And he's like, I expect you to make mistakes, and it's okay because you're new.
What a great attitude. Yes.
I know.
Yes.
And I was just like, who are you? So, and I met him and his wife and his daughter, and I left that day, and I'm like, I gotta find out more about this guy and this wife. I like something telling me that there's something really good there. And I watched his videos, and you know what this man does? Every single video I watched, he says, I couldn't have done this without my wife. And like, it was like a last minute thing. They were doing SEMA or something, or Good Guys, and it was like, I wouldn't have been able to get this done if my wife wouldn't have helped me. And I'm like, this guy gets it. This guy gets it. I'm like, okay, like he's a good guy. And he's like, he called me up, and he's like, you want to come give it a shot? And I'm like, I'm not ready, but I will give you my Mondays. I have Monday off. I'm not going to interfere with my work. Let me come work with Mondays. And I did terrible. It's all new. Oh my gosh.
But you're doing it anyway.
Yes. And I did it, and I told him, like, I did really bad. And he's like, it's okay. And I'm like, do you even want me to come back? He's like, yes. And, I had a rough couple weeks, and this week was actually a really good week. So this was like another thing, like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. So I'm working my job with the Ultimate Top Drives, where we built the hunting vehicles, but I'm also going there for 1 day a week and getting my ass kicked and being uncomfortable and not being complacent and failing. But I leave there and I can't sleep. My husband hates it because I leave that night and I can't sleep. I'm like, I should have did this. I need to do this. I need to practice this. I got new TIG rods. I need to do this. Like, it's addicting, and it's probably not healthy, but
no, that's when you're doing the right thing. Like, that is so wonderful to hear. Like, when you can't sleep at night because you're so excited about what you're doing.
Excited or mortified because, like, I messed up. Like, he's not gonna let me come back, and he still let me come back. And I am so grateful that he's letting me do that. And I've had some tough times, like with anything, and it's just like, he's like, you got this. He's like, and I told him I would much rather try this and fail miserably than get down the road and realize I never took that chance. And once I said that out loud, like, to myself, and I'm like, that's what I've been doing my whole life.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
You've been rewriting your life. You've been starting over. You've been having to reprove yourself and find a place for yourself and pick yourself back up from tragedy over and over and over again. And I gotta say, as much as all of that tragedy has been awful, and I wish that you had not had to experience all of it, the woman that it has made you, it's like, damn, girl.
Yeah. Like when you did your post today, and Nothing Gonna Bring You Down, that song, and I'm like, that's me. I
felt it.
I'm more of a suicidal tendency. Like, you can't bring me down. But I'm like, yeah, that's like, I still have, to this day, there's always that one person that just, and I just don't care. And it's just kind of like, I'm here. And while Cruisers Custom is giving me the opportunity, I'm going to take advantage of it. And he has this older gentleman there. He said he's just about 60. His name is Raymond. And he's my dad. Mm-hmm. He's my work dad again. And I'm like, oh, I'm in my 40s, so I'm the work mom. But no, he's still my work dad. And it's crazy because this guy is familiar with Formula cars, which is what I'm trying to find my dad's old car. And then we keep finding, like, it's just weird that, like, everything, like, this was meant to be. It was definitely meant to be. And I'm so grateful for every opportunity with the job I have now, with Cruiser Customs, with the people that want to see me fail, with my husband, with my family. Like, there's everything. It didn't make sense at the time, but it all works. And I still love what I do. This is the hardest thing I've ever done, is this metal shaping. And I am teaching myself coachbuilding, by building a bumper car, like the old Dodge and bumper cars, because I'm like, it's small scale. It won't cost as much as in material, so I won't feel as bad with the mistakes.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and I just got the rod was delivered today to build the buck. So I'm taking everything that I've learned from the metal shaping, still adding to the tools, which is expensive. I didn't realize some of these are super expensive, and a little bit at each time, but like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm so grateful for everybody that has given me an opportunity and that believes in me. And I had to do non-traditional things to get to where I am, and I'm okay with that.
I love it. I love it. I have to like just real quick, because your husband just, damn, she's a hottie. I love it. I just had to call that out because it's so cute. He's been so supportive, and I'm so grateful that you have that now. You've experienced the non-supportive partner, but then to have a partner that so knows your love language, that knows that your love language is a welder, and paved the path and gave you the opportunity and the gift, and is just standing by your side while you're doing all of this. Like, I'm so grateful that you have that. And I'm so grateful for your tenacity and your fierceness. You are truly, truly an inspiration. We've run out of time already. It is.
I didn't think I was going to have enough to talk about. I'm so sorry.
I know. Before we went live, guys, she was like, I'm so nervous. I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm like, this is a truly amazing, inspirational woman. I know that you guys agree with me on this. This has been delightful. You are fascinating and so full of great words of wisdom. And I think people would be a fool to not be inspired hearing your story and getting a chance to.
I hope I inspire somebody.
Absolutely. Okay, so speed round, real quick.
Okay.
Favorite thing about what you do, about your career path, about welding?
That if you can make this exciting, you can make something different every day. Like, there is not just a little bit, like welding is everywhere. And there's so many different ways to do it. Art, machining, cars, like bridging, engineering, like it's never ending. I love it all. I wish I could do it all. I can't, but yeah.
All right. And final question.
Okay.
If you had the opportunity to go back and talk to little baby Kristen, the younger version of you, what are your words of advice for her?
Oh man, I wish you. Oh man,
yeah.
I would probably not let people bring you down, and eventually just like just keep following. I mean, this is a tough question.
It is,
because I don't think I would change anything, because I think I think that going through all that stuff the way I did to get to where I am, I'm happy with it. I don't live my life in regrets. I take all of that. So I would probably just say, if it was me, like, you're going to rock this. You got this. So I think that's probably all I never, and to like tell myself to be proud. So yeah. I don't think I would change anything, because I learned so much along the way that made me where it is.
That is so powerful.
Is that okay?
No, 100%.
It's vulnerable and it's raw, and I know I made a lot of mistakes, but
it is so powerful, and it says everything. And I know that you're probably the most amazing mother as a result. Like, because what you just said is like, you're going to make mistakes. Things are not going to be perfect all the time, but I love you anyway.
Yeah.
And it's going to work out perfectly no matter what. Like, that's what you just said to your younger self. That's what you're saying to your kids. I know it.
Yeah.
And it's perfect. Absolutely.
Yeah. I was not expecting that, but
yeah.
But I'm okay with that. Oh yeah.
You're incredible, Kristen. I'm so glad that I stumbled on a comment you made. Sometimes, I don't know if you do this, like, I sometimes on social media, I like go straight to the comments because I want to see what people are saying.
Yeah.
Because I see something ridiculous. And I think that's what it was. Like, it was something ridiculous. And you made a comment. You're like, actually, this is how you test this weld. And I was like, who is this sassafras? I like this. And I checked you out. So I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad you said yes. This has been an honor to meet you and to get to hear your story. And thank you so much for saying yes and being so open and so vulnerable and just for being the badass bitch that you are.
Well, I just want to end on one thing. We talked about it earlier. I just think that there's so many smoke and mirrors in our trade and in social media that, you know, I think it's important that we see our mistakes and that we let other people know that it's okay. It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to fail. It's okay to be vulnerable as long as you learn from it. You know what I mean? You can nosedive, and I nosedive plenty of times, but like, okay, that was over. I caught myself on fire. Okay, I failed a weld test. Okay, whatever. What? Okay, I'm still alive. I'm still here. I learned from it, but yeah, I just wish people were more open and vulnerable and less smoke and mirrors.
I so agree with you, and that's the impetus behind this platform. In all honesty, with this podcast, is we need to hear that even though people who we look up to have had hard times, that it's part of being human, that we struggle, we pick ourselves up, we move on. It's just part of life, and people need to hear that more. And I definitely agree with you. In this day and age of social media, it's so hard. Because we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people and these fake images and these filters. And it's so important that we get vulnerable. And so I'm so grateful that you're willing to. So thank you.
Thank you.
And side comment, make sure you go check out the comments after this is all over.
I'm afraid.
I
turned my phone off because he's my biggest supporter, and right behind him are my kids, and I'm
going to embarrass you and make you blush because this is it's so beautiful. I cannot express how much this woman is an inspiring and exceptional human. She has a huge heart and cannot be told no ever. I've tried it. It doesn't work. I love her and I'm so proud of her. Talk about a supportive partner. May we all find such supportive partners. You're wonderful, Kristen. Thank you so much for joining us. Folks at home, I know you guys had to have enjoyed meeting Kristen as much as I did. If you enjoyed meeting her and getting to hear her story, give this a like, leave us a comment. Make sure you subscribe, share her story, share this video with other people who should see it. If you know other women welders or women in the trades or young girls who just need to be inspired by somebody, pass this on to them as a little love note of inspiration. Thank you guys for joining us. Big thank you to our sponsor for this episode, Drive Time, again, for putting their money where their mouth is and supporting women in the trades and all that they do behind the scenes to help create a more diverse work environment within the automotive industry. Kristen, again, thank you. Thank you. Folks at home, thank you all. Until next time, make sure you come back every Wednesday. We have another live episode. Every Monday, we have an archive episode. And so 2 times a week, you get to watch With Her Two Hands. So until next week, be good to yourselves, be good to one another, and we will see you later. Bye, guys.